Hello and welcome to Doubles and Trebles. It's back with me in the hot seat, Matt Pieman Hill, and I'm joined by Adam Smido Smith. And it's horse racing back on the agenda today. It's been a little while. No SD, thankfully. We're on the anti-post trail again today, and it's the 2,000 guineas that is our subject matter. This was one of our most viewed videos ever last year. Unfortunately, didn't really deliver for the people. Adam made two very convincing cases for selections, and neither of them ended up making the race. But I'm sure he's going to put that right this year. And it was some great insight. It's great to get an overview of the market, and we're about a month out from the race. Is that right, Adam?
Yep.
Yeah, and we're going to rattle through it. I know Adam absolutely loves this race, so without any further ado, I'm going to go straight in. We're a month out. Who do you fancy right now?
Chucking me in at the deep end there, Pine Man. I would just caveat and say that one of the horses I did pick last year that didn't run, St Mark's Basilica, did turn out to be one of the best horses in Europe, winning the Irish Champion Stakes,
Yeah, I'll give you that.
and the Sandown, the Coral Eclipse at Sandown, but unfortunately didn't run in the Guineas, where I said he would win. Anyway, moving on to this year, you've chucked me in at the deep end there, Pine Man. I do love this race, but I'll be honest, the last few years, I've come into the new flat season not particularly excited about any individual 3-year-old or 3-year-olds generally. And that's an empty feeling for me because I do look forward. I do watch the 2-year-olds with always in the back of the mind, are they going to be a Guineas horse? I'm not really an anti-post Derby punter. As I've said last year, we will do an anti-post preview on the Derby, but the Guineas is where it's at for me. It's early in the season. And it just kicks it off with a bang. I mean, even to the extent whereby the amazing Pinatubo 2 or 3 years ago was officially the best 2-year-old for decades, and that didn't particularly excite me going into his classic campaign, to be fair. But this year is very different. I'm bang up for it this year. It looks a cracker. I think there's 3 horses at the top of the market with genuine star potential, in my opinion. Very quickly, they are Native Trail, unbeaten in 4 starts, 2 of them Group 1. Luxembourg, unbeaten in 3 starts, 1 of them was a Group 1. And then Caribus, 2 wins from 3 starts, an impressive 2-length winner of a Group 3 on his final start.
That might be a good time for me to just jump in with the odds as we stand.
Yeah,
so, month out from the race, we have Native Trail at a best price of 3-1, Luxembourg in at 9-2, and Caribus at 5-1.
Yeah, so without doubt, those 3 are the best juveniles we saw last year. But the great news is, Pine Man, they're all very much intended to run in this race. I would be shocked if they didn't. And normally, from an anti-post perspective, we're asking ourselves, will they run, won't they run? These 3, barring injury or anything ridiculous, will run. And that's great news. So it has all the ingredients to be a proper renewal. And I've only mentioned 3 horses so far. But the answer to your question, which I've gone round the houses in going about answering, is if I was having a bet right now, Pine Man, today, at the day of recording, I would back Luxembourg. I'd rather be having Luxembourg at around 9-2, 5-1 than Native Trail at 3-1. Like I say, I do think all 3 of them could be really good horses, but Luxembourg, to me, is properly exciting.
Yeah, it's quite an emphatic way of putting it. I mean, 9-2, as we say currently. Native Trail, the market leader at 3-1. Then, I mean, what is it about Luxembourg that makes it stand out above those other 2 horses?
Well, traditionalists would maybe say that he's been campaigned like a Derby prospect last year. As a 2-year-old, he had a Derby type campaign. Because years ago, horses that debuted over a mile, ran in the Beresford Stakes over a mile, and ran in the Racing Post Trophy over a mile were very much seen as Derby types for the next year. But Aidan O'Brien has pretty much single-handedly put a stop to that school of thought, because he's won the Racing Post Trophy with the same horse that's gone on to win the Guineas a fair few times. Camelot, the father, the sire of Luxembourg, being one example. But on Luxembourg, just watch how easy this horse won the Group 2 Beresford Stakes. That was in Ireland on his 2nd start. Just really visually impressive. Forget the clock, forget the opposition. Just watch with your eyes. And he was at the back, cantering, entered the business end of the race, still out the back. He passed virtually every horse on the bridle, scooted clear with one tap of the whip. It was really impressive. He could have hardly won any easier. He looked like he had what they call, sometimes called touch button type acceleration. It was literally touch the button, boom, he was gone. And he looked like there was plenty of frame to fill. Obviously, only a 2-year-old then. So hopefully, he's filled that out over the winter, and I'm certain there's much more to come. Now, the opposition that day, on his 2nd start in Ireland, has since, it was that great form. possibly not. The second that day has already been out and been well beaten in Ireland so far this year. So there is a definite question over the form, but purely on visuals, I thought Luxembourg looked special, and I've just been looking forward to his next run and his next run after that, and his 3-year-old, ever since then, really. He then went to Doncaster, which was on his third start in the Group 1 Racing Post Trophy over a straight mile. That was soft ground. He went off odds on. He won that day as well pretty easily. But I think the soft ground on that day probably put a stop to that electric change of gear that we saw on his previous start. But he still won. I mean, 2 or 3 lengths in a Group 1 is nothing to frown at. He was asked the questions quite a lot earlier than Ryan Moore that day, than Ryan Moore would have liked on that day, particularly in comparison to his previous start. But I'm putting that down to the ground. He hit the front probably a little bit too early, and he still looked pretty green when he hit the front. It was all hands and heels stuff, really, easy as you like. Just a performance that made you look forward to his 3-year-old campaign again with more maturity, both physically and mentally. There's plenty of development to come. I think is really, really exciting.
Compelling case for Luxembourg, sounds really strong, and yeah, it's definitely a visually impressive performance, even if the form hasn't quite stacked up. And if you're so keen on Luxembourg, the question just does beg then, why is Native Trail ahead of him in the market? And give us a little bit more info on what has been the Ante-Post favourite for quite some time now.
Yeah, I think he's rightfully ahead of him in the market. I'm on record as being a big fan of Native Trail. I remember saying on this channel that he would win the Group 1 national stakes in Ireland. He was 7-2. There was an O'Brien favourite odds on that day. That was last September. He won. He's got the best form in the book, Native Trail. That's pretty much out the question. Definitely has. He's certainly beat better horses than Luxembourg to this point in their respective careers. He's already won 2 Group 1s, the national stakes as mentioned. Then he came back over for the Dewhurst, and we said on our big preview video last year that the Dewhurst and the Racing Post Trophy are the 2 key races as juveniles that normally have a big say on the 2000 Guineas, and it'll be the same again this year. Native Trail was crowned the European champion 2-year-old. So there's all sorts to like for him. He's more of a strider rather than an instant turn of foot. Took a little while to get going at Leopardstown and again at Newmarket. But when he hits top gear and when he gets organised, I mean, he's impressive, and he's gone away to win Group 1s. Knuckles down, particularly in Ireland. Like I said earlier, where we saw off Aidan O'Brien's leading 2-year-old at the time, which was Point Lonsdale. Point Lonsdale was odds on. Native Trail put a beating on him. It's as simple as that. He had a tad of trouble in the Dewhurst, where he had to be switched around horses when he was looking for top gear. Didn't look completely comfortable in the dip, but at least he's had a bit of a practice run at it, the unique test of Newmarket. It was his first experience of Newmarket. Won with plenty of authority at the line. Bayside Boy, who was 3rd in the Dewhurst, went on to fill the same position behind Luxembourg in the Group 1 Racing Post Trophy next time out. So there's a bit of form there between the two of them. Obviously he's pretty good and could well go and win this 2000 Guineas, but everything's about price, Pieman. I say that all the time, and I'd rather back Luxembourg at 9-2 than Native Trail at 3-1 as we speak. I mean, at the back end of last year, I did a few very short clips about some of the Guineas contenders. Luxembourg was one of them, and at the time, I think I did that in December, and at the time he was 6-1. And I said at the time I thought he was too big then, and I think the 9-2 might be too big now. But you can, I can't see the 9-2 particularly changing all that much about Luxembourg, because they're in the right order, because Native Trail deserves to be favourite, as I've just explained, and Luxembourg is, hasn't beat as good a horses as yet. So I think that the prices are correct, but I would just much rather be with Luxembourg as we speak.
Yeah, you talk about a price play there, and there is a third horse at the top of this market that we need to talk about, and there's been a little bit of money around from him in the last day or two.
Yeah.
Some firms have actually got Caribus in at second favourite now for around the 4-1 mark, so there is a little bit of interest there. A lot of racing fans very excited about this horse. What do you make of Caribus?
Well, I talk about correct prices just a second ago. Now I'm going to talk about an incorrect one, because Caribus being shorter than Luxembourg is wrong to me. It's really exciting. Caribus, 2 wins and a second in 3 juvenile starts doesn't quite tell the story, because the one where he came second and I was on him and I put him up on the channel, he was probably the most famous 101 in running loser last year. Caribus, he went clear at Newmarket, and I was at Haydock on the day with SD, and I started celebrating and giving SD some stick, and then the one that SD was on, Royal Patronage I think it was called, got up on the line, and lo and behold, SD had backed Royal Patronage and I'd backed Caribus. So that wasn't a great time to be around me at the time. But yeah, that hurt. But Charlie Appleby, and he trains both Caribus and Native Trail. That's something to note, and they're very much both intended runners in this, which is good to hear. But he talked really highly of Caribus before and after that defeat, which was his second start, even to the extent where Caribus was above Native Trail in the pecking order, which I didn't agree with at the time, and obviously still don't. But yeah, really quite high praise from Charlie Appleby. On his third start, Caribus back to Newmarket looked much more professional. He won the Autumn Stakes, which is a Group 3, by a decisive 2 lengths. He never looked like getting beat that day, to be honest. Travelled really strongly, and they spread across the track that day. He was towards the rear, but he was certainly in touch, but carried himself to the front on the bridle at the 2-pole, raced on his own at the business end, went well clear. William Buick didn't even have to use the whip that day, so there was no fears of a repeat getting done on the line on his final start as a 2-year-old. Look, again, in comparisons, Native Trail and Luxembourg, Caribus looks to have a very much a turn of foot merchant, an accelerator, rather than a grinder like his stablemate Native Trail. He's certainly going to be in some exciting races this year with this running style he's got, out the back with an electric turn of foot. He's got £7 to find with Native Trail on official ratings. I don't read too much into official ratings with 2-year-olds coming into 3-year-olds at this age, but that's on official ratings. Can he bridge that gap in May? Possibly not, but come later in the season, I think that the way Charlie Appleby's talking about him, I think Caribus is maybe the developer and Native Trail's the one that's going to be prime and ready to go and possibly be at his peak in May.
Well, there you go then. That's why we're not with Caribus at the prices, but it definitely would be Luxembourg out the 3 for Adam at the value play. So obviously those 3 dominating the market, but it does kind of lead me to ask you, I'm getting vibes you're quite keen on these market leaders this time around, but would there be anything at a bigger price at this stage?
Well, Pieman, the short answer, disappointingly, is no. There's just nothing I'm prepared to back at this stage. So if I'm not prepared to back them, I can't tell the viewers.
We will not put selections up for the sake of it on this channel.
Yeah. So there wouldn't be anything. There wouldn't be anything at a bigger price. I wouldn't be telling people to be in a massive rush to back Luxembourg. I think the prices are going to stay pretty similar. But if the race was this afternoon, I would definitely be on Luxembourg. And like I say, it is a cracker with the top 3 in the market. Very much the best 3 juveniles of last year, and very much all intended runners. I mean, there'll be no surprise if these 3 horses could win 6 Group 1s between them in 2022, 7 even. They could go in little different directions. Luxembourg's going to go up possibly to the Derby trip. He's the Derby favourite. Caribus could go 10 furlongs and end up in something like the Juddmonte, and Native Trail could dominate the mile. But obviously that's very all hypothetical. One that would be of interest if turning up in the day, so I'm not putting up anti-post, but if it was turning up on the day, is Wexford native for last year's winning trainer Jim Bolger. He only made his debut a few weeks ago, actually, Pam, and he didn't race as a 2-year-old, Wexford native. He made his debut in Ireland at the end of March, and it was pretty impressive. He saw off some more experienced horses over a mile at Navan. It included a short-priced Aidan O'Brien favourite on the day with experience. Wexford native saw him off. He was up with the pace throughout, just looked to have a lot of tactical speed, travelled really comfortably at a high pace. A big colt, so there should well be plenty more to come from him. He could actually run again before the Guineas, but he's by no means a certain runner at Newmarket, and I'm certainly not one to be in the business of predicting what Jim Bolger, where he might place his horses. I mean, you look at last year's winner, Poetic Flair, it was pretty much discounted and not even mentioned by us on the previews. To be honest, I'll hold my hands up to that. And Poetic Flair then danced every dance for Jim Bolger. He ran in 3 Guineas. He's the only horse I've ever known to do that. He ran in the Newmarket
horse for all
Guineas.
Occasions, wasn't it, last year?
He ran in the Newmarket Guineas. He ran in the Irish Guineas on terrible ground. He ran in the French Guineas. He ran at Royal Ascot. He was probably the most impressive winner of the week. He was just all over the place last year. And this Wexford native, same owner, Jim Bolger and his wife, same trainer, Jim Bolger. So anything could happen with him. But that's just if he turns up, Pieman.
One for your tracker then there, Wexford native. Sounds like it's going to be a very interesting horse to follow throughout the season, if not an official selection. Official selection, very much Luxembourg at this stage on the value play, but compelling cases for the top 2 in the market, and maybe a word of warning on Caribus from a value perspective. But nicely summarised there. I don't think we need to go on too much longer. This is our first look at the 2000 Guineas. Very helpful from Adam there. Hope you enjoyed that. do let us know where you're leaning in the comments. If you've got a value selection, we always love to hear them. I know we've got a lot of racing fans who maybe haven't watched or commented for a while. The season's officially back now, so it'd be great to hear from you guys again. We will try and get SD back on at some point to do the old weekly preview if time allows. I know that was popular with some people. So yeah, I won't rule out a return of that either. But yeah, thanks very much for watching. Let us know what you're backing in the comments, and we'll be back with another Ante Post preview very soon. Thank you.